how we can do our best to tackle that. Now, of course, our County Council, Watford County Council, do also have a responsibility to educate and make sure that Watford is an inclusive place for everyone. And somebody that I'm sure is committed just as much as all of us to making that the case is our local Watford Mayor, Peter Taylor. Good evening, Peter.
Good evening, Benji. How are you doing?
I'm very well, thank you. Now, of course, Black History Month is the whole of October, and we're choosing to celebrate it right at the very end, just to make sure that it's still in people's consciousness. I know that Watford have marked it, and what does it mean to you, Black History Month?
Yeah, that's right, we have marked it. I've been to quite a few events. There's been ones on at the Palace Theatre. I went to Watford Museum, I think it was a week or two ago. They had a really interesting exhibition, and I learnt about a Watfordian called Claude Buxton, who he was an ambulance driver in the First World War, and after the First World War came to Watford, married a local woman, started a business, and they had 4 sons who all became famous boxers. They were known as the Boxing Buxtons, and made a huge impact in the town. So it was really good to learn about him and his family.
The Boxing Buxton. So Watford actually has got quite a rich boxing history then, with, of course, a much later generation, Anthony Joshua.
That's right, yeah, and, obviously Watford's a really diverse town, and I think that's a great thing, and, people from all nationalities, all backgrounds have made a positive contribution in our town for decades. So, yeah, I'd recommend the exhibition that's on the Watford Museum at the moment. Yeah,
I mean, it is really lovely that that being out of London and being somewhere in the home counties, some people would assume that we haven't, we may not have such a kind of interesting and exciting mixture of cultures, but we really do in Watford, and we really are all the greater for it, aren't we?
I think definitely. We see obviously at the moment with all the difficulties around COVID, but actually, a town like Watford that's very diverse is really pulling together, and that people from all backgrounds are looking after, looking out for the neighbours. So that's really positive. And as I say, one of the, I found it really interesting just to see how far back that diversity goes. It's not just a recent thing, that we've been a very diverse town for actually going back centuries. Yeah,
absolutely. And I just, as you were saying that, thinking about the very sad case of the Watford nurse who was working at the hospital who passed away from COVID, was of course a Filipino nurse. Is that right?
That's right. I mean, he was, playing a huge part in the town, only in his 20s, incredibly sad. And we know that, the NHS is supported by a really diverse group of employees who've never worked harder than they have over the last 6 months. And, sadly, we have seen people that work at Watford General passing away, and, really just bring home how important it is that we all do our bit to get this virus under control.
Well, yes, and it's kind of with a heavy heart that it sounds as if our very small window to turn around the figures is almost closed, and it's not looking good. I mean, would it be presumptuous to say that we could be heading into Tier 2 lockdown?
There's definitely that potential, I've got to be honest with you, Benji. The figures, they rose really quickly from the middle of October. They kind of started to go up. They've sort of flattened off a little bit, but we need to get them down. We need to see people in making sure that they self-isolate if they've got COVID, that they wear masks, that they keep the distance from others, and of course wash their hands really frequently. Across Hertfordshire now, it's about 80 to 90 cases per 100,000, and we know that once you approach 100 cases per 100,000, that's the level at which some councils move to tier 2. So it is, we're still doing everything we can. I don't want to go to tier 2 if we can possibly avoid it. It's not going to happen in the next day or two, but I think we do need to take action, all of us, to try and bring those numbers down, to avoid seeing more restrictions that, nobody wants to see that happen, and the impact that has on our businesses, and just not being able to meet up with friends and family in the same way. It's no fun at all as we approach Christmas. So we're doing everything we can to bring those figures down.
And the conversation's still ongoing with West Herts Hospital to make sure that there are ample beds, and we're prepared if the figures do come up. Are you confident that our hospitals can cope with that?
Yeah, so we're having lots of discussions with our hospital. You're right, the figures have gone up. If you look at the numbers that are out in the public domain, we've seen figures, about a month ago, we were looking at single figures, the numbers of people in our hospital. That's risen. It's not back to the level it was in the spring, but we are seeing significant increase, and so we've got to do everything we can to support our hospital, to help our NHS staff. They're working flat out to try and keep us all safe and healthy. But we can all play a part by keeping our distance from others and following all of those rules. But we are seeing the numbers going up at the hospital at the moment.
Now, just before I let you go, today is the first day of half term. Many parents will be sad to say filled with dread over that. But in all seriousness, some very, very concerning headlines over the last few days about children going hungry over half term. We talked with Marvin Sordell about Marcus Rashford's efforts. I don't want to turn our conversations into a mudslinging match with our national government, but you may be listening at home, thinking that this is affecting you. It's not affecting you next week. It's affecting you today. Feeding your children is affecting you today. It is being, I don't want to use the word palmed off, but it is the government is directing people towards local councils. So what help and support can you offer someone who might be in need?
Yeah, I completely agree, Benji. It's terrible that we're in this situation. We've got families that are on low incomes that are having to make really difficult decisions about heating their homes or feeding members of the family. We're doing everything we can to support people in need in the town. So as you know, we've been raising lots of money for local charities. We've been working with the local voluntary sector. We've got some brilliant charities, church groups, organisations that are going above and beyond to help people. All that information is on the council website. Also, if you go onto my Facebook page, I've got a list of the food banks, the church groups, also local businesses. Many of them are making food available for local people. So, do reach out and get the support that is available. Personally, I think that it should have, had free school meals extended to the holidays. But in the absence of that, we're all pulling together and making sure that nobody has to go hungry in the town. So I'd, encourage people to look at that information on Watford Council's website or on my Facebook page.
And I suppose that is a very poignant message, pulling together and making sure no one goes hungry. It makes us proud to live and work in Watford. And whilst we continue to celebrate our ethnic minorities and everybody's contributions, I think we might just pull through. What do you think?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, people are very kind and generous. We know there was a league table produced of the most generous places in the whole country, and Watford was right there up at the top in terms of the amount of money that we give to charities. We've got some incredible charities in the town and businesses that really care about the community, so huge credit to them. As I say, I wish we weren't in the situation we are, but given where we stand, we know that people in Watford are generous and they'll make sure that the support is there available for people who need it.